And we are live with Cafe Crash. I am your host, Daniel Crosier, and I am joined by the super talented artist, Will Perkins. How are you, sir?
Hey, thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, good to connect with you. It's great to see another human being.
Yes, even just through the computer endlessly, right?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Obviously a lot of my viewers know that I've bashed up my leg in the last 2 weeks, so all I can do is connect with you online, even more so.
Yeah, whatever it takes, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
At least you get to do it from your bed.
Yeah. This is the excuse, right?
Is there meds? Is there good meds involved?
Yeah, I do have some oxycodone, but you gotta really watch that because we
Hey, can
are
you work on that?
on an opioid epidemic and
Yeah,
everything. So that freaks me out. So
yeah.
I've already cut that in half, and yeah, we've started looking at doing THC and CBD, and
hmm
to counter that. And I did do one day where I didn't do any OxyContin and did nothing but edibles, and holy crap, did I get stoned. I was not expecting that.
I was telling you when my wife had her shoulder separated,
But
she was the same thing. She doesn't like Percocet. The oxy terrified her. She's like, I'm not going to mess with it. And then she's obviously in pain. And the same thing, just like,
yeah,
smoke this.
yeah,
Just see. It got her through it.
good,
Like
nice.
even enough just to like take the edge off while the Tylenol kicked in or whatever it would be, and it
Mm.
worked. Plus, you're
Oh,
already in bed. If you're not off, you're not off.
yeah.
You
Oh,
blame the couch lock.
that's good. I'm glad your wife was able to get through that. So yeah. Oh man. So Will, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who you are. Where you come from, and how you got into comic books.
I was the drawing kid. I was the inside kid, the drawing kid. I was always drawing. I always loved comics, and I always drew. I drew comics here and there, but I had it's not a profession. There's no money in this, right? And then you grow up and you find out it's true.
Right.
So I was in college, and for whatever reason, I abandoned an English degree, decided to get an art degree from not an art school, and it was like the first time in my life where like the road in front of you opened up. Like I
Okay.
felt like I was always stop and go traffic, and suddenly it was just like whoa, 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 okay, I could do something.
Mhm.
So the dopamine starts hitting, and I got out of college, and I had not enough talent to do something,
Hmm.
and no real plan. So I just started kind of working on anything I could find, whether it be like, I mean, anything that I could convince, because this was like what 2007, so it's like the heyday of when like digital was everything.
Right.
Drawing is dead, everything's digital, computers are going to learn how to do all of this. I was like, I'm going to just try. So anybody I could convince,
Mm.
like, you need storyboard art, like, I'm going to do
Yeah.
it. Like, you need this, I'm going to do it. And
Right.
I actually got, I think it was my dad or somebody got a little blurb in the newspaper about me, basically
Oh.
like local kid makes a terrible comic from out of nowhere, like, right. And it was awful. It was like the first thing I've ever done, but there it was in the newspaper with my stupid face. And a guy, Steve Lindsay, over he had a book, Jesus Hates Zombies, over at 215 Inc.,
Right.
contacted me, and
Right.
he's like, I'm local, let's talk comics. And we talked comics for a long time. We never ended up working together, but he introduced me to 215 Inc.
Oh, cool.
And it was kind of like, I didn't know about small press comics. I had
Yeah.
read them, I had seen them, but when you're a comic book fan, comics are everything. Like, everything's comics. It doesn't matter as long as it's got a stapled binding. It doesn't matter if it's DC or if it's a Xerox black and white.
Right.
Comics are comics. How can you do this? Ooh, publishing. And I actually just kind of sat there working my terrible job with ripping off little pieces of cardboard and sketching out ideas.
Mm.
And my brother Mike Perkins, as we talked about, who's the
Yeah.
editor and chief now at 215 Inc. Back then, he's a wonderful writer in his own right, and we just kind of sit there. I'm hanging out in his house, drinking beer and shooting the shit every night, and be like, what if we just did this? What if we made this story? And I just started just coming up with crap ideas, great ideas, whatever I liked. and then we presented a comic to 215 Inc. and boom, they accepted it, and we
Cool.
took our first step into the small press grind. And through that, I actually met Eric Grissom, who did Goblin, and we partnered actually up on that, as well as Gregory Suicide for Dark Horse a couple years back. We met just, it's kind of like anything else. You're sitting around a convention floor, and you're always hunting for someone to work with, right? There's so many people who it just doesn't gel. It's like dating. And
Yep.
Eric asked me to do a short for his book at the time, which was Planet Gigantic. I think he was doing for Action Lab.
Oh, cool.
And I had done a fantasy comic or a sci-fi throwback comic called Beware for 215 Inc. Frog people from Mars, that kind of stuff. And he had me do some fantasy stuff for him, and it clicked. There's like, I usually avoid that stuff, but I love like old epic fantasy, not like I've fallen into different genres now, but at the time I just didn't like fantasy. I was all, it's like I'm hardcore sci-fi. And that epic fantasy, that German folklore, goblins and dark, never-ending story, Dark Crystal, Legend, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I love it. All style. And so we just kind of started working together from that, and we kind of developed a pretty great work rapport and a pretty killer friendship over the years now. So he kind of pitches me ideas, and eventually I'll convince him that he has to let me draw them, and here we are now with our second graphic novel coming up for Dark Horse.
That's fantastic. It sounds like it's been a pretty solid, long-standing collaboration.
It's turned into that. Yeah, we were just actually talking yesterday, joking about like our Gregory Suicide, which was a graphic novel at Dark Horse, started off as just like a one-shot pitch, just because he had a really cool story that he wanted to tell, and I was like, well, I'll try it. I'll learn how to do this. And we were yesterday. It was just like, holy was that 8 years ago? Are we almost? Is this almost been a decade? Like, what is happening?
Wow.
But yeah, we did that. We did a couple others, and we do little shorts here and there that you probably can't find anywhere except for our websites. But then 2 years now, I think 2.5 years ago, he kind of threw this fantasy book at me, and kind of being like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. Maybe it's a book, and I'd use your illustrations like old Hobbit style, or he didn't really know what it was yet. And as soon as I read it, it was just like, the reason you get into comics is you want to tell the stories that are similar to the ones that you love, whether they be movies or books or whatever. And this one was it. Like I as soon as I read it, I saw the world, and I saw the toys I wanted to play with. So I just started just constantly being like, you have to just give me 8 pages. Just let me try it. Like, just if you write me 8 pages in comic book prose, I will give you 8 pages, and then we can talk. And if you want to go do a book, go do a book. But just give me this shot. And usually with Eric, if you kind of like, same thing, if you give him the opportunity to write something and he's already in love with it, it just happens. And before you know it, he's enthusiastic, and he presented this pitch that we just started working at.
Nice. It sounds, I mean, yeah, you were mentioning all the fantasy stuff that you really enjoyed growing up, Legend and everything. And while myself reading Goblin that you gave me a preview of, I read into that too. And it's just like, this reminds me of the world of Legend, or of the Last Unicorn. Those those types of fantasy epics that I too grew up with, and so I could tell where a lot of inspiration seemed to be, and I really like the idea too. And I don't know if this was a conscious topic of conversation between you and Eric, but goblins are usually they're the villains, right? They're the outsider. In this one, you made him the protagonist, the hero.
Hmm.
and you basically cast him as the Tom Cruise role from Legend. You know that.
I like to call it the reverse Conan.
Excellent, excellent. Okay.
So Eric used to run a comic book store. He owned or no, I'm sorry, he owned a video game store back in the
Oh,
day,
cool. An arcade,
and
huh?
so we were friends for a while before we kind of like you leaked like I like video games, like you like video games, I like video games, right? And he had
Yeah.
been playing a lot of Skyrim. He was finally back in. He was catching up, and he was like, and I guess he was doing the same thing. Like you're walking through this village, this goblin village, putting arrows in every last one, collecting stuff off the dead bodies.
Right.
And it's like, what happens to the one I leave behind, man? Like that, just like casual thought, that you think of, and then it just turned into this story out of nowhere
Mm,
about loss and kind of revenge, but not so
yeah.
revenge. And but like you said, Eric loves Legend and Dark Crystal, and he started telling me this stuff and kind of using that reference. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm with you here. Like, yeah, you're all the stuff that gives you those swells of emotion when you read it or watch it. Just like, yeah, I like more, please. And finally, it kind of started to take shape. And like you said, it's kind of that dual love of old fantasy, love of video games, that kind of
Hmm.
Breath of the Wild Zelda stuff.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that we wanted to make this comic book. A lot of times with fantasy books, you're either right along, it's world building, but it's very narrowly focused around the character. Where both of us, we really wanted it to feel like Dungeons and Dragons, where you're like,
Hmm.
you may be here, but if you wanted to go over there, there's something. I don't know what it is, but there's something over there, and I wanted to kind of give that to the reader. That same kind of thing as when you're watching the Never-Ending Story, and there's the statue in the distance that you don't even know what it is, but
Right.
it's something. Whoever painted that awesome painting or matte painting,
Right.
they came up with some story for themselves at least, and that's the stuff I love.
Yeah. I always love the idea of that mystery that you've established something on there. It's not fully explained. It's in the background. One of my go tos is like the movie Alien. You've got the space jockey stuck in that's in that chair, and clearly the chest is blown out. And
Hmm.
so, unfortunately, you also get the explanation of that in
But
Prometheus.
as a kid, I
Yeah,
loved that.
right, 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 right. So it's yeah. So there's that idea of having creators actually go off and address some of those ideas, but yeah, at the same time, it's like I love the idea of just leaving it alone, keep it
Hmm.
a mystery, and let the fans kind of
I feel
impose
like
their ideas maybe
it's like a
too.
handshake where you're like, I want to do 80% of it, but
Mhm.
if somebody who reads it or somebody who watches a movie is like, yeah, but what is that thing? You almost want to be like, yeah, what is that thing?
Right.
Like I don't want to tell you necessarily, but I love that engagement with the product. So like when I'd be drawing something, I'd do the same thing. I'd be like, I'm gonna slip a little pirate cove over here. Or I'm gonna slip
Yeah.
a dinosaur over here and see if Eric yells at me. If he doesn't, I'm gonna slip a couple more, and then
Right. Right.
before you know it, you have a world.
Yeah. Yeah. Most definitely. And that's what this graphic novel really is. It's a fantastic introduction. And I mean it's a nice thick book. It's a good read. I mean you feel like you're getting a full meal.
Hmm.
I love a story that is that way. It's really hard to do that with like when you're getting like your monthly floppies,
Yeah.
so to speak. It's hard to like wrap your head around. But when you get a collected trade or collected graphic novel, it's like, oh yeah, we're in for it.
Yeah, like
So,
is this just a means to hook me up to the milking machine to make money
right,
off of me, or is this or did the writer have something to tell me?
right, right.
And
Yeah,
that's always what I respond to. That's what I love about Eric's writing, is that like he never sends me something that's just like, I just wanted to play with these toys. Like he has a purpose. So it's like it's almost like make that joke about it, like being like a relationship, but it's like a commitment where like
yeah,
if you are gonna put your heart into this, I will give you as much as I can back then. Whereas if somebody's just writing something to just write something, it's kind of like, well, we're gonna have some fun together, but like, there's not a sense of as much a sense of a responsibility. I think sometimes.
Right. No, I've had those creative relationships too, where things aren't so in tuned,
Mhm.
and misgivings occur and stuff, and things collapse.
But when you do work together well, it's like it might not be commercially viable, but the product itself has some merit, at least to you and the creator, because like
Right.
that you put it all on the page. There's
Right.
nothing held back. It's it's at least personally worthwhile, right?
Yeah.
And the readers hopefully respond to it.
Yeah, most definitely. Now, obviously, it's not released, but what's the relationship like with you and your readers and your fans?
Uh, Enigmatic. um, well, when I have time with my 400 followers on Twitter, no, uh, anything, honestly, generosity. Like anyone who reads our books and communicates to me directly, I love it.
Yeah.
Um, I found that it's been really nice because it's like the people who respond to the things that we respond to seem to find us, which is really
Hmm.
nice. So you kind of feel that sense of camaraderie.
Right.
Um, and people have been, especially this, like we've had some early reviews and some people check it out. It's been really nice to finally see them react to it after being kind of created in a vacuum for 2 years. But
Hmm.
but so far so good, right? Nobody's bullying us. Nobody's yelling at us.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Obviously, yeah, you guys finished this up during the pandemic and
Mm-hmm.
everything during lockdown. Um, you mentioned before we went live that it was, at least that part was pretty easy, for you, because you had something to focus on and work on, and just work your way
Yeah.
through it and everything. But um, you know, was there any a moment like where you missed like doing like conventions and shows and seeing people in person?
Yeah, it feeds the creativity quite a bit, obviously,
Mm.
like being able to have that little bit of feedback when you're in a complete vacuum,
Right.
especially if you're like a perfectionist, or
Mm.
you can drive yourself nutty trying to
Yeah.
kind of keep going without any kind of feedback. But honestly, no, I didn't have time to even think about that. Like you have, because like we
Mm.
started production on the book, and then trying to think of the timeline here. I just remember that mid-production pandemic hit and Dark Horse shut down.
Right.
And I remember we were just kind of sitting there being like,
Ooh. Yeah.
we might not, like, realistically, everything in the world is shutting down. We're making this little funny book, fantasy story, like it just, so we kind of agreed to just keep
Okay.
working, like it's, so that way, let's say everything starts back up and you got all these projects that went in hiatus and we are ahead of the ball and still moving,
Yep.
maybe that'll help us. And luckily we very quickly after that got a notice from our editor that, like, don't worry, keep moving, like, we're
Okay.
back on. I'm like, oh my god, we're back on, okay. And
Yeah.
then by then we were in the heart of the pandemic, so it was kind of just, it was a really nice way to distract myself for quite a bit of it,
That
through all the ups and downs.
that's good. I mean, the anxiety of anything shutting down. I mean, and we talked about a little bit about your wife's family restaurant too,
Hmm.
having to really weather through that. I mean, that yeah, there you saw firsthand just how frustrating that can be.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was weird living in. You're living with essential workers. You're living with people who have no choice but to be front and center on that. But it was also really cool to see, like, because like I was telling you before, my wife's family business is like it's a community staple. It's been here for 50 plus years now.
Mm.
So, like, to see them innovate, to see them kind of like push through it, but also see the community rally around it and how accepting everybody was. It was really nice. It was like, it was tough. I mean, it was hard watching them work 14-hour days, but when you come home and people are happy and people are giving feedback, it was nice to also see that part. it can get kind of dark out there. It was nice to actually see some positive feedback from it all.
That's good. I can, yeah. Oof, what a tough time.
Plus during the food, like when we were worried about the food shortage, to be like, well, we have burgers,
Right,
like we can get through this.
right. Most of. Yeah,
Might be
gain your
might be
COVID-19.
yeah. Oof. But we made it through. Luckily, our book was kind of, it was dealing with loss. It was dealing with grief a little bit, so it made it a
Right.
little easier to kind of tap into that. But other than that, it was a good distraction. Yeah, it was an easy way to kind of pretend like the world around you wasn't in shambles.
Nice. When when Eric's sending you pages, like
Mm-hmm.
what's your process to transfer the written word into an illustrated page?
It's ever evolving, really, because like I'm kind of like I'm a I'm a gadget guy. I like to kind of innovate and change and
Oh.
try new things. There's always trying to find a way to make it a little easier, when in reality it's just do the hard work.
Mhm.
So he sends me a script. I take the script on my tablet and I literally draw in the script. So if while I'm reading his script, see an image, or even just just like block, line here, figure here, something, and
Yeah.
then I take that and I will build layouts off of that
Okay.
on my desktop. And then usually what I'll do is I'll try to do at least scene by scene, and I'll send them back to Eric. He will look them over. We'll usually get on the phone and discuss kind of the
Mm.
scene in detail. So, if I'm hitting the tone a little wrong or the pacing a little wrong, we'll discuss it. Or if I have an idea to kind of like, all right, here's one thing I really want to do for this, we kind of get that all figured out, and then I'm off to the races, and I start penciling right away on top of that.
Nice.
I'm working digitally, so there's
Mhm.
always that kind of excuse to pencil/ink at the same time, which I don't
Yeah.
necessarily always recommend. But when you're doing triple threat work on, like I'm drawing, I'm penciling, inking, and coloring the book, so like the entire time, just sitting there being like, I gotta have this delivered by May,
Oof.
whatever I gotta do, right?
Right.
If I want to spend a week on a 2-page spread, that's fine. But that means next week I got to get 8 pages. So
Ouch.
usually we just kind of keep going back. We work actually off Dropbox together. So every night or every weekend,
Okay.
whenever he yells at me, I'll just upload it while I'm working.
Hmm.
And so he's able to even like letter right behind me and kind of iterate while we're working.
Okay. Cool.
Because in addition to being a phenomenal writer, Eric is he also is a letter, like luckily he's the letterist, so like as up until the day we deliver, he's revising, and he's sitting there
Yeah.
looking at my art going like, well, okay, we hit this new tone, let's change up this dialogue a little bit, or like maybe this isn't clear, let's clean this up a little bit. So like finally when you get the book done, it's like this totally new thing, and
Oh
it even
wow.
lets me read it, like
Yeah.
I instead of just looking at something I've looked at 100 times.
Nice. That's what a fantastic way to be able to collaborate together. Because typically um, with so many creative teams in comics, you've got your writer, you got your illustrator, then it breaks down to colorist, inker, letterer, and everything. But with digital, I mean, it's streamlined so many
Yeah,
processes that
if you
a
get it,
smaller team can get it.
yeah, if you get a system that works for you, you can make it work, and it almost lets you be more creative with it, because there isn't that anxiety. Like Eric always jokes, like, you know, the work would be worse if we had a letterer, because you'd feel bad about being like, hey, can you go over this scene one more time? Like, you
Right.
couldn't even afford to do that, because I wouldn't be able to not pay that person for the 10th edit of the book. So,
Right.
it feels like a way to either drive yourself insane or someone else. So luckily we chose to kind of drive ourselves insane.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. I've talked to so many people in that, like in film and stage. I mean, so many hands that have to be in those productions, because it's a multi skilled, multi talented platforms that
Mm-hmm.
that that need these deliverables, right? And yeah, I always love the idea of, or I always love going back to comics because, it can be as few people working on that project as yourself, or just a couple friends, or a good collaborator, and but you're still these are all vehicles for storytelling. It's
Mm-hmm.
just so interesting to see what the scale and the scope is.
Plus,
You know,
plus we were lucky to have a really nice editorial team. So like being able to have that, where like especially when you're in the pandemic and you're all alone, and
yeah,
having someone who can then be there is that ricochet point of just
right.
like it's like giving us feedback, helping us kind of shave off the edges. Um, we actually started with the pitch for the book was drastically different, and
Oh,
without spoiling anything, because Eric will kill me if I
yeah.
spoil anything.
We want you
But
to
like
be alive for a long period of time, so please do not die at Eric's hands.
or more importantly, he will lose his mind. He won't necessarily come for me. I'm too far away, but he will lose
Okay.
his mind. It's the original pitch we had was a little darker, a little more mature. I think we were. It's kind of like imposter syndrome. Like you're sitting there and like sometimes you're children of the '90s, right?
Right.
You try to rub a little grimdark on something, and you're just like, that's not what we loved about the source material. Like, and we had an entire pitch that we had made, sent it off. Actually, Eric hired Heather Antos to look it over and give us some feedback, and thankfully, she came back with a handful of things and critiques that saved the book in my eyes. Like really kind of like I used as kind of a lighthouse the entire way through the book. And we actually went back to formula, took the pitch, chopped up, I would say 2/3 of it, threw it out, and then redid it, because we're just like, it's an all ages book. Like
Mhm.
we don't
Yeah.
need to show someone getting their head chopped off when the
Right.
whole point is showing someone who suffered loss,
Yeah.
and having an editor who make these little recommendations, even if it wasn't our final editor,
Mhm.
that eye opening of like the editorial process. It's like what made the book what it became in its own little way. Like kind of put a shining light on that point on the horizon that Eric and I could then keep moving towards. Whereas in the beginning it was kind of all by feel, and I
Mhm.
think it helped us find the that gothic feel, that fun Henson like 80s dark
Right.
fantasy,
Right.
without necessarily falling into that Zack Snyder trap of just like, ooh, look at this.
It's dark.
Yeah, for whatever
If
reason.
yeah, if it's dark, there must be depth to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fantastic. When it comes to the creative process too, and working with your editors, um, is it difficult to kind of take, because I mean, even in a pitch, your artwork and everything, the story that you want to tell. I mean, that's you're putting your heart on. Yeah, I mean, that's your heart on your sleeve right there. You're
Mhm.
putting your soul out there. Is it tough to take in feedback or criticism, or is it just getting easier as you go?
Your skin toughens up. I think it depends on what you're going for, like why you're
Mm.
doing it, I guess. Like
Yeah.
my aspirations are not to be, drawing Batman for 20 years. My aspirations are to be a really good storyteller. So like feedback is always hard. When somebody says the thing that like,
Mhm.
I was, this is, this is like my second book coloring, right? I taught myself
Mm.
really to color on a couple of these books.
Nice.
And, you're, it's art. You're jumping in, there's no real one way to do anything, especially in the digital age.
Right.
And having an editor who knows how to give critique, like it's the first
Mm.
thing you get taught in art school, is not how to draw something. It's how to give a critique.
Right.
What is constructive criticism, and having someone tell you something, not telling you what's wrong, but how, like, why it's not right, I guess,
Right.
and
That's a good way to
and
put it.
it's one of those things where you sit there and you're like, oh god damn, that sucks, but
Yeah.
they're right, but they're right. And so like every time you're working now, you're like, you hear that voice say that one thing, like, is there enough contrast there, Will? Is that enough contrast? Like, I know, Heather, you're right. But then again, I also look at that first pitch and it's like, whoa, that was terrible. Like
Mm,
the guy who finished the book is totally different, and I
yeah.
wouldn't have done that. So it's like, all right, yeah, they were right. And every time they're right. So just you take the hit, and if you don't take the hit, you're just going to be that same person who can't draw feet when they're 18, you know?
Right. Oh, uh, I know way too many popular artists that still can't draw feet.
They're hard. That's why it's hard.
Yeah. When it you know, comes to this, like for something like Goblin, obviously, for me, my go-to is as we discussed a lot of those 80 films, Legend, The Last Unicorn, Labyrinth. Do you see this as something that will translate pretty well into other mediums, or is that something you and Eric have even approached or discussed?
We've discussed it. We've discussed it with Dark Horse. It's one of those things where it's when I those were our source material.
Right.
I grew up with Jim Henson. That was my like I when I drew this, I I I pictured these characters in my head as puppets, if that makes
Right.
sense. And I because that is like an inherent influence, I think it would
Mhm.
naturally would like an animated puppet, that kind of thing. I always imagine and daydream about that, but I think it certainly does. Like I said, it's inspired by that stuff, so it's translatable. But everything is right.
Yeah, yeah. I think everything can be. It's you
Whether
know
or not it translates well,
right. If you're
yeah,
able to get the essence, I think that's all that you can. I think you can really strive for. Really, just depends on the tools of the other
hmm
medium, I suppose. The but one thing too, I kept I was talking to my girlfriend Elise about this while I was reading this, and I'm like, holy crap, this fits really well as like a kind of a companion piece because it's in the same genre as a live, or not a live, I shouldn't say, but a puppet show called The Barbarian and the Troll that's airing right now on Nickelodeon. It's an all ages, all puppets.
got to write it down.
Yeah,
Never heard of it.
Oh, it's fantastic. They just have their first season. I think it's like episode 8 right now.
What's it called?
The Barbarian and the Troll,
I gotta
and
check it out.
yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. But I was just like, wow, this what a great time to release Goblin, have something like that come out. I'm now wondering, it's like, are we going to see a lot more original, specifically fantasy,
I hope so.
pieces come out
You
because of
have
it?
it's like I've been I throughout the entire pandemic, like I said, I'm watching my family go through the worst of it,
Mhm.
and you try to be optimistic. And I remember at one
Right.
point saying to her, like, maybe this will be like, after Vietnam, we got all that great escapism, right? Because like
Right.
nobody wants to deal with this. We just want to escape somewhere, and I'm hoping it's like, please, people, like maybe this will, a year of everyone sitting alone, daydreaming and trying to escape this nightmare will churn up something great, some renaissance of good fantasy and escapism. I
Yeah.
hope
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Like I certainly don't want more grimdark.
Nope. No, I think I think collectively we're certainly moving past that,
hmm
out of necessity.
Like,
Uh,
man, like I just like I'm not there's a balance there that we can strike. I know it, and I when you see it, man, it feels good. Like that we need a little bit of that Darwin Cook energy back
right.
in
Right.
in general everywhere.
Yeah, we definitely are. Have a hunger for a little bit of more magic, to be,
Yes.
disseminated, upon in this world at least, yeah. So when I see, pieces like this, and like that TV show, it's just like, holy shit, everything's gonna be all right.
Yeah. And that's how, I mean, that's what like working through the pandemic was so great, because it's just like,
Mhm.
maybe this can be sweet. Like you need a little sweet to go with all the spicy and the
Right,
salty.
right,
And hopefully the people who read it will find it. Like, it's just been really nice having feedback where people are picking up on specific things that you're putting in, thinking only, you're putting it in for you, but like, that's what Goblin is. It's just like, there's got to be something sweeter out there. There's got
yeah,
to be some moments. Even our book, it's all about, overcoming loss and grief and all these horrible feelings, but it's about that sweetness. It's a coming of age story. It doesn't matter if
yeah,
you're a human being or a goblin. It's about, I was describing it to somebody recently, like, being a teenager is 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 terrible, right?
right,
Like, it's hard. I don't care who you are. I don't care any what your background is. Being a teenager is really tough. And
yeah,
and for some people more than others. And when the real good coming of age stories are not like, oh no, it's great. It's like, no, but you're gonna get through it. You're
right,
gonna be different, and somehow it'll be worth it. I promise. And that's
yeah,
what a good
yeah.
fairy tale tells you.
Yeah, most definitely. The other thing too is, I mean, I mentioned too, taking the goblin, you know yeah, as you did in your book, and making him the protagonist as you did. There's that history, and I'll reference specifically like horror genre, where so often, like, the monster was an allegory for the outsiders. So
Mhm.
for that, and it tend to demonize, people of color or people of certain sexual persuasions and stuff like
Whoever
that.
was the whipping boy of the time.
Yeah, exactly. And so I really like the idea of, also seeing, the goblin, which, potentially in folk, or in some fantasy, that's the, potentially the outsider there. That's that whipping boy at the
The
time.
lowest rung on the ladder in every fantasy, right?
Right, right. And to give that kind of representation, it's like, hey, hopefully, we can see, uh, more of that. Where, I always love the idea of that thing, the monster is the hero. You see that in Hellboy,
Hmm.
and I think that was a conscious decision with Mike, for that book. And I've I'm always more fixated. It's like, well, what makes him the monster? Because you don't like him, or uh, there. I think this is somebody that has, a much more deeper backstory. It's like, why not explore that?
Plus, if you're a healthy human being, you have some sense of self-loathing in some way. Like, you don't think that you're a
Right,
god.
right,
So if you have a little bit of that, like, a monster is this perfect other that we can all, it's like an empty vessel that we can all be a part of. Like, we all remember,
yeah,
no matter who you are, it doesn't matter. You know, we don't have to follow these like strict divisions in human society. We can just kind of,
yeah,
you can just put yourself into it.
right,
Um, and it really, like I said, it allowed us to really kind of tackle a lot of not only the stuff that was happening all around us, but
right.
as everything evolves as you go through it. But you know, four or
Yeah,
5 months into the end of the world, you kind of get a new perspective on a lot of stuff.
yeah, yeah. It kind of lends itself to that, doesn't it?
Yeah, Eric and I always joke, like, by the time you finish a project, you're a totally different person. In this case, we
Right,
had this ridiculous metamorphosis several times throughout the process of this book that, unfortunately and fortunately for me, really dealt with a lot of the shit we're dealing with. So
right.
it's kind of like you can use it almost like you can almost use it like a journal or therapy, like a little easy therapy. You can work/therapy that you can kind of get through it.
And with that in mind, what what do you think is the biggest lesson you took away from this project?
Uh, that's a good question. I wasn't expecting that.
Sorry.
No. It's a little tired, but like, it is the friends you make along the way. It's
Mm.
we suffered our own little tragedy in losing my father right in the middle of
Oh,
production of this book,
right. Oh man,
and the
sorry.
book itself is very similar to that, and it it lends a different flavor to the second half of the book for sure, but like that feeling of community and family that kind of wraps around you, and the fact that, like I was saying before, no matter what, this is gonna
Yeah.
suck. Like I remember, and I have a dark sense of humor, so I apologize. But like during the worst of going through what is quite, you sit there and say to yourself, like, this is one of the worst things that's ever going to happen to you, right? Losing a parent, whatever it is, whatever your personal tragedy is. And I just remember my wife saying to me, just like, this is going to be bad, but you're
Mhm.
going to get through it. We're going to get through this. And that context permeates this book, especially the second half, where it's just like, you know, you put you you decide that you need to do something for whatever reason,
Mhm.
and you go off in that direction. But when you get there, you are a different person, and what you do when you arrive can be anything, can be a totally different than your initial reason you set out. And the real meaning is the look back, like you're saying, if you're a teenager and you feel othered in every single way and disregarded by every single person. Like, that is what being a teenager is,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
And when you get to the end, hopefully you have the tools, or been given the tools, or you experienced enough that you can sit there and say, like, okay, but what was the point of it? You know?
Mhm.
And having this little goblin, this little innocent, fragile goblin to put on this journey, and and which is started in this tragedy, and then ends fueled by either my own tragedy or just, that feeling. It was extremely therapeutic to work through it.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's fantastic. Um, with with the book coming out and everything, and it sounds like you've got some more projects that you're already working on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm currently working on the issue 4 of the new Kadoja volume that's coming out through 2 and 5 Inc.
Oh, cool.
Hopping on with Keith Foster to kind of take that one home. Kaiju fun,
Nice.
when you deal with something like this, and it's just like, do you want to draw giant monsters? I was like, yeah,
Yes.
absolutely, any excuse, right? And Eric and I are kind of always kind of just sitting there being like same kind of thing, waiting for that open lane, be like,
Mhm.
what do you want to do here? I'm constantly chirping and being like, I want to do more Goblin, like I want to go back. It's
Yeah.
like when I was a kid, you'd finish Alice in Wonderland and be like, but was it real? And you have that, like, but she could go back. Like,
Right.
you're like, all right, yeah, I want to go back. I want to know that I can go back in there, right? So I'm going to keep pitching him on that, playing new
Nice.
video games, trying to find new inspirations for any of that stuff, and hopefully he'll get excited enough to write me something.
Nice. Yeah. One thing that stuck out to me with Goblin is some of these supporting characters that you come and meet for short little vignettes along the way.
Mm-hmm.
The hopefully I'm not giving anything away, but the Minotaur that
Mm-hmm.
shows up,
Yep.
just like right away, it's like, oh, this is gonna go bad,
Right.
and then you find out it's like, oh, he's just lonely.
Right.
Oh,
That's Eric. Like that's what I love about his scripts, because like, even me as a reader, you're reading it and like you never always know where Eric's going to go with something, and then
yeah.
like you read that dialogue without any context, and you're like, wait, what? Okay, I can draw that. Yes, all right. And that comes from his, same kind of thing. That's why, like, his love of those like Rose Esty choose your own adventure Dungeons and Dragon novels from the 70s and
Yeah.
80s, and that's the tone. That's what I was saying. Like when he sent me the script, knowing that this world is not, it's not hard fantasy, it's not dour fantasy.
Mm.
It's a bit of both.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing that keeps me intrigued is seeing like those archetypes go down paths less traveled.
Mm-hmm.
When you're usually using a character like that, it's like, oh, this is going to be very violent and gruesome, and it's like, oh no, we're doing something completely different. It's like, I love it.
It doesn't have to be the opposite just to keep you on it. Like it's just a little unexpected.
Yeah. No, that was pretty refreshing. Will you tell us a little bit about some of your inspirations too when it comes to approaching, how you work and everything.
Most film, quite a bit of film when I was a little kid. That's really where a lot of this comes from. My dad and I connected over movies.
Yeah.
So, as a little kid, my dad was, we'd pause The Searchers and talk about like frame composition or some crap that
Wow.
neither of us knew anything about, but like we both responded to it in the same way. My dad was like an old weepy Welshman, so he would always, like that whole idea of like this makes me feel something, and be like, yeah, me
Right.
too, but we didn't know anything. And then Bill Watterson, Calvin and Hobbes.
Mm.
It was kind of
Nice.
same thing. It was there from a very young age, and I devoured it endlessly for 30 years. So it was kind of that you can achieve any tone. Every
Mhm.
project has its own genre and tone, not being beholden to like a style, a house style, whatever it is. So being able to just kind of explore and have fun in any direction. Bill Watterson could draw anything, and I always loved that. Like you never knew what you were going to get. But more importantly, the fact that like those comic strips had more heart than dozens of runs of comic books I was reading at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have a really, really biting, sharp joke, but also have
Yeah.
timeless heart in there as well.
Nice.
It's like a daily inspiration for that. Just like please.
Yeah, well, and yeah, I think that's something that we all look in our work as well as something authentic and honest.
Mm-hmm. Not just like I really liked insert artist from the 90s here when I was a kid, so I'm going to draw like that for the rest of my life. Like
Right.
my work can sometimes feel a little eclectic because I don't try to do a singular style so much as I want to get better as a storyteller. That's the most important thing. So,
Yeah.
more of that manga influence where like, panel to panel requires a specific thing to tell that story. And if it means a
Mhm.
hyper detailed close up of something versus a cartoony character in the background making a funny face, whatever you want to do, whatever tells and communicates to the reader,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I've fallen into as I've gotten older.
Okay. Oh, fantastic. The as an artist, like when you come across or come to a point where I don't know, you're frustrated creatively, or you're just exhausted or something. You know, do you have an activity or anything that you
Yeah.
you transition into just to kind of clear your head?
Usually it's video games, honestly.
Okay.
Like it's, but that's more of the procrastination thing. Like, right when I don't want to do something, I try to
Right.
escape, and that was my reward for doing a good day's work. But honestly, something that Eric and I both share is that like go for a walk.
Yeah.
I'm lucky to live in upstate New York, so like I'm up by the Finger Lakes. There's tons of little trails and places everywhere. So like, anytime I'm struggling, anytime there's something, it's just like just go for a walk. You know,
Nice.
it, it's it's an opportunity, especially with this book. It was easy. You get into nature, you find
Mhm.
a little something to distract, and usually if you walk far enough, by the time you get home, it's all figured out. Whatever it is, you have at least a solution to try versus the head in hand just beating yourself against a page. Sometimes it's just like just go walk that direction for 2 miles and come back and see who comes back. And nine
Yeah.
times out of 10 it works.
Yeah.
At least enough to get the page finished, right?
That's great. Yeah. I find, having, those de-stressor, activities, handy is such a great thing. It's also a good coping, tool to kind of keep things sane,
Yeah, figuring out your brand, what's going to help you get back to center is that one of the harder things.
Right, right, right. Most definitely.
Takes just as long as feet.
Yeah. Yeah. Will, it's been, an absolute pleasure, having you on here. Now, Goblin's going to be coming out pretty soon. When do you know when its release date is?
Uh, Barring any canal-based delays, we are in comic book stores on the 26th of this month, so 3 days.
Sweet. Oh my
And
God, that's awesome.
June 8th everywhere else. So Barnes & Noble, like if you go to realmofgoblin.com, you can still pre-order, of course, through either like Walmart, Target, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
But your local store should also have it. And if they don't, yell at them. Yeah.
That's right.
Demand.
Demand. Go to your favorite local bookstore, everybody, and ask them to put Goblin on their shelves.
It's never too late, right? That's the beauty of graphic novels. It's not, you didn't miss anything. Let's do it. But also, and I'd feel bad if I didn't mention it. One of the other things we did in the last 6 months is Eric wrote a homebrew Goblin adventure based in like the 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons rule set. So like if you go to realmofgoblin.com, you can actually download for free this 30-page, 2-night adventure that you can kind of run with up to like 6 people.
Wow. That's
like I was a big D&D kid. He is fascinated by D&D, so he kind of decided to learn by building this thing. And I drew a bunch of stuff for it. It's a lot of fun.
Cool. Yeah. So everybody, go to realmofgoblin.com and download your own Goblin D&D adventure. Get your friends together, play that. That's awesome. Yeah, right. That'd be a lot of fun too. To see readers take that, play it, and get back to you. And it's like, what that experience is like.
That has been fun, like because I was one of the play testers for it when Eric was building it, and kind of sending it out to close friends and family, being like, well, "What do you guys think?" But also having them like walk around in a world you built, meeting and having these like kisses with history with things that you make important to a story. It's fun. It was a weird kind of experience as one of the creators to do, and then play around in my own world kind of freely.
I think that's awesome. I think that's a level of participation that any fan would absolutely love. Instead of just having to, let's wait for this version or this film or whatever. It's like, get your friends together. Here's the script. Play it out. For yourselves. And oh my God, I think you guys are onto something. Wow.
And we're by no means the first people to do it, but it's kind of like as soon as Eric pitched it to me, it's just like I said, so much of this is based in games, both tabletop and video games for us in terms of reference. Yeah. When he said it, was just like, oh my God, please, I would be happy to donate. I would put any art you need in it. Like, let's do this thing. And to really, not only that, but also to watch Eric, who is very familiar and has his own hilarious stories with D&D, really learn that system. And it takes more than 20 years to learn. It's just the magic system alone in D&D, but to watch that kind of unfold and now have this thing and be like, all right, now everybody let's jump in together, right? It's not just us it's like you're saying before, like they bring something to it.
Right. Oh, that's fantastic. So yeah, Goblin is going to be out in just a few days, and oh my God, I got a little entrenched with our conversation, but yeah, the artwork is absolutely stunning. You are absolutely tremendous. You and Eric just building this world. I can't wait to see more. And I hope to hear that you guys are doing the D&D stuff at like conventions and things, because man, that would be so much fun, or at a comic book store overnight.
Just like actually DM it. Oh my god, that'd be.
I think you guys should be doing stuff like that. That's a great way to engage, I think, with your fans, clearly on a one-on-one basis. But I mean, not too many people are doing stuff. And I think, right now, communities coming together after such a hardened year, I think that would be incredibly endearing.
It's the best parts of the video game world is that like
Yeah.
the community and their response to something impacts it. It's not in a vacuum completely. So like, yeah, it's kind of fun to have other people kind of participate in the building of a universe almost.
Right. Most definitely. Oh,
It could be cool.
That's so awesome. Will, sticker. Oh, you got Jason. He likes the idea. Sweet.
There you go. RealmWithGoblin.com. It's all yours, man. Oh, and
Nice.
if anybody who can, if they read it, if they, anything, please leave a review on Goodreads if you can, or just kind of find us on Twitter and make sure you tell Eric how much you liked it, because I want that guy to know he did such great work.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I'm glad that you guys shared this story with us, and it's fantastic. I can't wait for more people to find it and to become fans of you guys' work. And yeah, it's I can't say enough good things about it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
So Will, stick around for a few minutes, but I want to thank you for being so gracious with so generous with your time, and also kind of moving it up a day so that I could go have surgery tomorrow.
This one time I'll do it.
Okay, thanks.
Anytime, man. Anytime. And in fact, next time we'll get Eric in here.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be fantastic. That'd be cool. All right, and everybody that tuned in. Afterwards, make sure you go to realmofgoblin.com, and make sure that your bookstores order this amazing graphic novel and get it in on those shelves. Want to thank also Mutiny Information Cafe for sponsoring us. If you're going to start a revolution, make sure you're caffeinated. And be good, be kind, help each other out during this tough time. Yeah, and always remember we love you. Thanks so much, Will.
Let's see you, man.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.